Good afternoon, everybody. Liz Smith here, president of the St. John's Boosters Business Association in St. John's neighborhood of Portland, Oregon. Coming to you on Friday, April 2nd. And we are in a new month. We are fully in spring here in Portland. It is absolutely beautiful today. I'm sad that you have to be with me in my dark living room while that sun is brightly shining outside. But I hope that wherever today finds you, you are able to get out and enjoy it a little bit. It is just stunning weather right now. Could not wish for better. And we're just loving it. So if you're here, you are tuned into our Instagram live series called I Am a Small Business. And this was inspired by a social media campaign that was created by Venture Portland. And it was to highlight small businesses, organizations, and their owners and staff, and really just remind people that when you support local organizations and businesses, you are supporting your neighbors and people and their families. And in the challenging time of the pandemic, we felt that this was even more important to be together in some way. So we decided to take it live and let you get to know some of the wonderful people who make up our business community here in St. John's. So even if you are from St. John's, not from St. John's, you can enjoy this little time together with us. And I certainly enjoy doing these talks and seeing all of you. I have an important announcement to make that I'll make right here on Instagram Live. We applied for a grant to do a native plant pocket park, which is just a little park in St. John's. The area that we were thinking about was on Philadelphia and Ivanhoe, right in front of Burgerville. And what we want to do is do a native plant garden there, redesign it to be a native plant garden, as well as a space for land acknowledgement. And what that'll serve as is something welcoming people as they, come to St. John's either to visit or they live there or maybe even for the first time, but welcoming them with something that is so much a part of our natural area. And we got the grant. We're super excited. And we will be working on this project this summer. Right now it's called the St. John's Native Plant Pocket Park Project, which is quite a mouthful. But we will be working with the community to come up with a really good name for this little pocket park as well. And there'll be lots more announcements going out about that in the next couple of weeks, launching this project on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. So coming right up. Super excited about this. I'm very excited about working with the community together on this and just having a nice project to do while we're still in this phase of our pandemic, with a little bit of hope going forward and something that I'm hoping will last and we can enjoy for years and years to come. So today I have a very special guest. Everybody's a very special guest, but today is definitely a special guest. And that is Michelle Jones. Michelle is the founder and also the president of Wayfinding Academy, which is right here in St. John's. And so full disclosure, I also work at Wayfinding Academy part-time. And when Wayfinding Academy first opened, I was right there at the launch ribbon cutting ceremony and thought, wow, this is definitely something that I want to be a part of one day. And years later, I was able to make that dream come true. And I don't know if you all know about Wayfinding Academy or not, but we are so thankful to have Michelle here today to tell you a little bit more about it. Michelle is in the waiting room, so I am going to let her in together. Yay!
Hello.
Hello, look at you there. Ooh, with some nice art behind you.
I know. I'm in my office at Wayfinding right now.
I was gonna say, I don't think you're in your home, so that's in your Sorry, I was getting a phone call right at the same time during our Instagram live. I'm using, you use your phone. Of course, it's going to happen. It's going to come right at the same time.
This is
So
what we get for using our phones for everything these days.
exactly. Then whenever I lose my phone, I'm just completely not able to do a single thing because everything happens on the tiny computer that we carry around with us on our person. So, but
Yeah.
thank goodness for those, or actually, I wouldn't be able to do anything. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Well, I'm so happy you were able to be here today. I already told everybody that I also work at Wayfinding, so I have a little bit more inside knowledge than the average person. But I want to make sure that people know that we have a college right here in St. John. Some people
Right.
don't. And B, just a little bit of history of why and when you founded Wayfinding Academy.
Oh my gosh, yes. And you've been, I think it's been 8 or 9 months that you've been working at Wayfinding, something like that now. Yeah.
Yep.
Not quite a full year, but the entire time during the pandemic.
Yep.
And for those who don't know this, your role is being a guide for our students, which I think is one of the most challenging roles that we have at Wayfinding, but also one of the most joyful and rewarding roles that we have. So, because you get to work directly one-on-one with students every week and know them very, very well and help them carry their story and prepare for after Wayfinding. Yeah. So we're really glad to have you on the team.
I will tell all of you, it is an amazing role that I didn't even know was possible or existed, because that certainly did not exist when I went to college.
Right.
So yeah, that was great.
And maybe that's a good place to start about the why and how of history of Wayfinding, because I feel like the guide role is like a small example of how we do everything, which is like my background is as a college professor. I mean, I went to college. I did the traditional thing everybody says you're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. So I did that, and ended up becoming a college professor without really questioning anything, like just doing the thing you're supposed to do. Right. And then it was after I started teaching, a few years after I started teaching, that I started becoming more aware of and hearing more stories of how the higher education system is broken. There's a lot of students that don't get served well. Some students get actively harmed by the higher education system. And so once I started hearing that, I started paying more and more and more and more attention. I ended up being a professor for 15 years at a whole bunch of different places around the country, and ended up sort of maybe 10 years into that, increasing the pace at which I was collecting these stories, mostly from students, but sometimes from faculty colleagues. And as that pressure kept growing, I thought that, there's definitely a better way to be doing college. And I took what I think is probably an extreme step that I don't recommend for everybody. And I started a new college. But through those stories over those years about what's broken, for example, I heard a lot of stories about the academic advising. The way academic advising is traditionally done just is not helpful for students. And they end up majoring in things they don't want to major in, or it takes them too long to graduate, and then they get in additional debt, or maybe they meet with their advisor for 15 minutes a year, something like this. So I collected all these things that was like not going well. And then when I was like, well, I'm going to start my own college, and I was just like, I'm just going to do all the things differently. And so our guide program is our version of a much better academic advising. And so we are a small nonprofit college. We're 2 doors down from the library, which I love. In fact, I just got a notice today that I've got a book ready to pick up on hold. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can just walk right over and go get it. And so I designed all of the different things to be how an alternative college might do it, but not just an alternative college, but like a small human scale alternative college. So, and it's a 2-year college. We do associate's degrees, and our students all major, right now, they all major in self and society. So it's about half is self-exploration of who are you and what do you want to do with your life? And half is about what contribution do you want to make to the world? What is your purpose-driven work in the world? And then our whole team, especially the guides, helps the students opt into electives and internships and things like that that help them get skills and then prepare to do their purpose-driven work in the world after they graduate.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciate about the guide program is that I almost feel sometimes like I'm a bit of a life coach
Mm-hmm.
for the students, because it's not only on like study habits or overcoming barriers to getting the work done. It's about life stuff, like how are you balancing your job and school, or you've just moved out on your own, and what does that, apartment search look like, and how's your commute, and it's this whole notion of like juggling everything but making it work for you. And it is so self-directed, which is so great, but it's self-directed with so much guidance and support. And I feel like when I was in college, it was such an isolating experience. I always taught, I did love college, but I'm like, that wasn't real life. that
Right.
that was something else. That was like this bubble of like going to classes and being on this campus, where everything was beautiful. And one of the most striking things about Wayfind to me is that it doesn't look like a learning institution in your mind looks. And
Mm-hmm.
also the campus is really the community, which is it's not, there's no brick walls isolating you from the community. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because that is so different from what people, imagine a traditional college experience like.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat just a little bit and quote our creed. Like when we were founding this, when myself and the founding team were creating Wayfinding, we spent a lot of very intentional time trying to articulate what we believe, what we are going towards. The easier part was what we were going away from. We're not going to be like this. We're not going to be like that. But we wrote this creed to signify for us what we're going towards. And two of the lines stand out in this related to what you just said. One is that we believe that the line between the real world and school and between life and work is imaginary. So I agree with you that pretty much everywhere I ever taught and my own experience going to college, it felt like you're in this isolated little bubble and you're not getting those whole human interactions. And we wanted to make sure that we were treating that line as imaginary and permeable. And so we also talk a lot in our creed about being a community, about learning, serving, exploring together. And in those early days, we used to talk about, like, our real campus is Portland. We created the college in concept and got it approved by the Oregon Higher Education Coordinating Commission before we had a building. And so to some extent at the beginning, we were like, well, Portland is our community. And so as long as we find a space that can be our home within this city, we will be, at the right campus. And this was the first building we looked at. And it took us about 10 months to actually successfully buy it and move into it. But that whole time, something could have gone wrong. But we knew we wanted to be in a place where we could build real relationships and be an example of, like, we are an internal community with our students and faculty and crew and guides. And we wanted to be able to be in a place where we felt like we could be in a community in the neighborhood where we were situated. And so for us, St. John's was our top choice because I don't even know. I mean, I try to explain it to people who are, not from here. And it's like a little town within the city, and everybody knows each other and we see each other a lot. And like the farmer's market is in the parking lot right next door. It's like just being part of this environment. And that's been really great. And it helped us achieve that part of our mission about being, like, we are technically a community college with equal emphasis, though, on community and college.
I love that. Community college, but you think of those two words together, what that means, and then what that separately means. And Wayfinding so much embodies that. I mean, the way that the Wayfinding students and everyone else actually who's there integrate with the community. Oftentimes, we do, as the boosters, we do plaza cleanups, and you guys have come and done plaza cleanups with us, and interacting with the St. John's Village that just got built. It's so remarkable, and I I am so impressed with how the students conduct themselves in the real world. And I remember, after graduating from college, getting my first job and being like, oh my gosh, I better grow up pretty fast because the real world works a lot differently than my little college world works. And I don't know if I have the skills to I've got to get a bunch of skills real fast, you know? Um, I,
It's our hope that the way we do things, the students are getting those skills while they're here with us, like you said, but with lots and lots of support. It is very self-directed,
yeah.
and with lots of support. And then the idea is that when they graduate, they have all the skills they need, and they still have the support network. I mean, we're with them forever, if
Right.
that's what they want. So it's like, but then they would be empowered for the rest of their life to find jobs that bring them purpose and bring them joy and make their own life decisions with intention. And so hopefully it's lifelong skills that they practice for a couple of years with lots of support while they're here, and then they feel confident to go out and do on their own afterwards, which is not, I agree with you, that is not how I felt when I graduated from college. I was not ready.
I had the conversation with my parents all the way through college about, I was an English and a French major, and they were like, what does that look like when you graduate? I was like, I don't know. Those are the things I like. And I do actually use those skills in my work, but I kind of get what they were saying now. It's like, that's great. And I love that you know how to analyze a piece of literature, but what else? What other skills are you building?
Right.
And that was super, super challenging. Well, one of the neat things about wayfinding that when I first came on board, I needed the terminology. There's so many different kinds of terms for things that you have very carefully and intentionally chosen. And my assessment is with a more welcoming or can you speak to that a little bit? For example, classes aren't called a year like the 2021 graduating class is not called a class. It's called a cohort. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that was, I give most of the credit for this kind of stuff to our founding team. We had several members of the team who really talked about how much language matters. And half of our founding team had worked in higher education, including me, and half had not. So there also was that helpful element of we couldn't just default to higher education standard operating language because half the team didn't know what it meant because they hadn't worked in that environment.
Right.
So it meant that every time we were naming anything, we paused and we talked about it, and we really identified what the thing we really intended it to be. So in the first example was, we're Wayfinding Academy, not Wayfinding College. We're a college, but we chose to name ourselves an academy because when you look up the original definition of academy, it's about a community of learners who learn together in a community. And so we were like, well, that's what we are. It creates a little confusion now with marketing and branding because we have to keep telling people, no, we're a college. But we made that choice really intentionally. The guide, that job title is intentional. We don't have an admissions department. We have a lead matchmaker, and his job really is to make sure he's finding students who are a good match for wayfinding and vice versa, that we're a good match for them. And he takes that very seriously, and he does do matchmaking. But yeah, we have roadmaps instead of syllabi, again, because a roadmap says this is generally where we're going to go and the stops along the way, but things may vary, things may change, we might want to take a detour. So we've chosen all the language super intentionally about that. And the cohort model, that's a relatively standard term in higher education, but it's often used very loosely, kind of to just mean students who start the program at the same time. Loosely is how traditional colleges use it. But for us, it takes on a whole new meaning because we do start students at the same time and have them in a cohort, but we start them off with this fairly intensive 3-day orientation where they build some solid foundations of their relationships. And then they go through the entire core curriculum, all 9 classes for 2 years together, all together, always with their cohort mates, sometimes also with other cohorts so that they're meeting other people. And forming new relationships, and then they graduate together. So they really do go through and end together. in the same sort of timeline. So right now we're about to bring in our 7th cohort in like 3 weeks. One of them was just here visiting. Pandemic's been weird because he lives in California. He found out about us about a year ago, applied, was super interested, didn't want to wait, like couldn't come here then because of the pandemic. Didn't want to wait a year though, so did far away finding with us, another very intentional language choice on our part, which is like what we do, our virtual, we have a virtual version of our Wayfinding 101 class, so he did that. And then and that was in the fall, and so he just came, he and his family came to Portland for the first time. He just walked into the building for the very first time today, and he starts here in 3 weeks, and he just signed a lease on an apartment at the Union building 3 doors down.
Perfect. So, oh my
gosh,
ideal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And a lot of what you're saying, like the interview process, or even the application process, or orientation. One thing about Wayfinding that I've noticed in my work there is how you've removed so many barriers that exist for people when they apply to a higher learning place. And for example, tuition is one of those things, or even the interview process or the application process, Wayfinding does quite differently. Can you speak a little bit to like why it was important to remove barriers and how you've addressed that? Because I know there's some really specific things that Wayfinding has done that's very different.
Yeah, this came out of my anger and frustration for how many students were being harmed or not served well by the traditional higher education model. Our students are really diverse in a lot of ways, and like their interests and their backgrounds and things like that. One thing I'd say that they all have in common is that were it not for Wayfinding, they wouldn't be going to college. And that's for a multitude of reasons. Many of them have tried going to a traditional college and feel left out, or like it's harmful, or it's not there to serve them, or it doesn't really see them as a whole person, and they don't want that. And so then they end up finding us and coming here. Others never even tried going because they know from, maybe they were homeschooled or unschooled or self-directed learning growing up. And so they know that they want something alternative. And so out of the anger and frustration that I had from being in the traditional model, I thought I'm going to remove as many barriers as possible, because we want to be a place that welcomes people as they are wherever they're at in their life. Because we're all on a journey of figuring out who we are and who we want to be in the world. I mean, that kind of never stops. And so for example, with the application process, we don't ask for grades or GPA or SAT or ACT scores, because there are so many issues with all of those. And when you look at it from a systemic racism perspective, it just disadvantages whole segments of our population. And so we removed all of those barriers. Students also can apply in writing, and most of them do on our website. But if they don't want to, they can also apply by having a phone conversation with our lead matchmaker. And so they can apply in like an auditory spoken conversation way. They can submit a video if they'd rather do that. Whatever we've had one application delivered like handwritten on paper, so whatever removing as many barriers and giving as much choice as we can. And then we carry that through, right? So we don't have grades, we don't have tests, all of yourself included, all of our faculty and guides do narrative evaluations to try to make sure our students are seen as whole humans, talking about their strengths and areas of improvement and where we've seen them stretch and grow and thrive. And so we carry that through the curriculum, and everything is project-based. So again, they can, if they want to write, they can do a presentation, a collage, an interpretive dance, like whatever they want to do to demonstrate their learning in every course. So we carry that all the way through. And then at the end, we do have some traditional-ish things, like we have a diploma, and we do call it a diploma. So when they graduate, they get a diploma and they get a transcript, but neither of those documents looks the way you would expect them to look. So each cohort chooses a motto, and then that motto shows up on their diploma. as like a representation of like what their cohort has chosen as their cohort identity. And on the transcript, those are all authored by the students. I mean, the coursework and stuff is put in by our registrar, like they took this class this term and with this faculty member, that kind of thing. But the whole top half of their transcript is like their own personal story. They can include a photo of themselves if they want. They write a couple of paragraphs about like, here's what I did during my 2 years at Wayfinding. They give themselves like a title of some sort that captures like where their expertise area lies now. They choose 5 different projects from their portfolio to highlight, the one that's about learning, one serving, one teaching, one exploring, and one reflecting. I think I got this right.
I think so.
5 projects, and they choose what to highlight. So they get to tell their own story. And then we just fill in sort of like the logistics. So the whole way through, we've tried to maintain that like removing of barriers and empowering, combined with empowering students to do things in the way that works best for them. I should say something about tuition because it's the most common thing we get asked, you know. So we're as a community college, we're priced at about the same as other community colleges in the region. We're a little bit more, depending on which one you look at and what year you look at it. So our tuition is $12,000 a year for the next year. And we have pledged to meet every student's financial need in whatever way we can. So we never want money to be a barrier to having the wayfinding experience. And so our chief business officer, Jen, who I think I saw was watching, so she talks to every student or their family, whatever they want, and she'll work out whatever situation works best for them. So I think literally every one of our students has a different tuition payment plan based on their personal situation. Some of them have scholarships. Some of them didn't ask for scholarships. Some of them want to pay, you know, all at once up front. Some of them want to pay month by month over 4 years, even though it's a 2-year college. We just like whatever Jen does to work out with them, she does. And most recently, we started the free tuition initiative, which is going back to that identification of systemic racism being a huge problem that leaves so many people out of higher education in general. And so we started, it's coming up on a year now, that we've been offering free tuition for Black and Native American Oregonians for whom wayfinding is a good match. And so in those cases, tuition is just free. And I think my goal is, I mean, we're a super small college, so like it's great that we're doing that, and some people are taking us up on it. It's like about half of our next cohort will be free tuition folks, which is fantastic. We're very excited, but I think other colleges need to, because like we're super tiny and we're not going to be a great match for everybody. But like if PSU did this, or if, you know, University of Portland did this, like,
oh
yeah,
that is such a huge reason why people don't go. I mean, a lot of students like pay for their own college, or they just don't have the means, and it's like the difference between somebody going or not. Or sometimes they would have to wait, you know, many years until they earned enough money to pay for tuition. So really is amazing to me that like you all have taken this on soon. But part of being a small college is that you're able to pivot to address, you know, societal needs a lot faster than a bigger institution will be. And I saw this really show itself during the pandemic, how you were able to navigate far wayfinding academy with regular wayfinding, with some in class and some virtual. And I feel like wayfinding was one of the first higher learning places to be able to be open to in person. Can you, and I think you're the chief safety protocol officer as well, one of your many hats that you wear around the COVID restrictions. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Totally. Yeah, this is my least favorite role that I've ever had in the wayfinding community, is I am our COVID safety officer.
Yes.
I soon will be able to take that hat away and hide it away in a closet and not use it anymore, I hope. Because that's been a weird role to have, definitely outside of my knowledge zone. Yeah. But here we are. I think that's true for a lot of people. And a lot of small businesses and organizations that, you know, the founder or the sole proprietor, like that, you had to learn about this thing this year and do the best you could.
Yep.
Yeah, and because we're on a strange academic calendar, which won't surprise anybody who's been listening to this, like we don't follow the regular semesters or quarter system. We have trimesters, which that's a whole different story of why. But because of that, we found ourselves in a strange position where we had to make decisions and put in place COVID safety stuff before most other colleges in the state of Oregon. Because like this time last year when this was all starting, we were going on a month-long spring break and then returning and had to figure out what to do, you know, starting in May. And the other colleges were like, well, we're just going to put everything online. And then we have the summer 3-month break to figure it out before the fall. And we didn't have that. So we put lots and lots of safety procedures in place initially. Well, we still have them all. They're all still operating at the moment. And at the beginning, it seemed like we were going overboard. You know, I made everybody wear masks and I made everybody like wash their hands upon arrival in the building. And like, we have this amazing, beautiful building. Thankfully has so many windows. So we could open all of the windows, which a year ago was delightful. This past winter, students did not love
Delightful.
that. They did not think that was delightful. We pretty quickly came back in person. Again, because we have a small community, like about 25 people total, students plus faculty plus crew plus guides. And we were, well, I guess maybe 30 people total with that, but we were not all ever in the building at the same time pretty much. So we could stay within all of the governor's guidelines and still do in-person things with all the safety protocols. So we did that, and we've been having classes in person, which has been so helpful because the mental health toll of this pandemic on everybody in our communities has been immense, but especially I think for young adults who don't have a lot of life experience, who don't have a lot of resilience skills yet, because they just are young.
Sure.
And so being able, for them, I think being able to be in person and be in community and have a structure and a place to go every day for class and that kind of thing, I think made a huge difference. And so right now I'm super excited because it's looking like we just started our break today. We actually start our spring break for a month. And then when we come back, it looks like almost everybody in our community will be vaccinated. And so we can start relaxing our COVID safety procedures. We've made it through the entire year without a single case of COVID in our community, which I don't think I would have predicted that when this started, but we have incredible humans. And so we made it through the whole year with no cases of COVID, and everybody's safe and healthy and will soon all be vaccinated. So when we come back, we get to relax some stuff. Like the students are like, we don't want the windows. It's so freaking cold. We bought them space heaters and like fuzzy blankets and stuff, but still it's cold in the winter. 20 windows open, it's cold. But they were like, we'll do it because it's safety. And they would just like bundle up in their blankets. And but their number one request is we don't want the windows to have to be open. They're like, we know it's summer, we might want them open, but can we choose whether they're open or not? So
exactly, so different.
And
you're so right about the in-person though. I mean, I noticed like a real difference between when we could be all together, and even though together, you know, 6 feet apart, you know, I love the way you configured the big room to have, you know, you could have a desk, but there's a desk in between. Everybody goes to their same desk. Everybody has sanitizer. Everybody cleans their desk after. I mean, the protocols that you put in allowed this to safely happen. And that was huge. That was huge.
A couple of fun things that are going to persist because of it. Like we never before had every student get their own designated desk.
Yeah.
That hadn't occurred to us. You know, students would come and they'd come to class and they'd sit at whatever desk and, you know, but at the start of this, we were like, everybody gets their own desk and we gave them all a little kit, you know, with masks and hand sanitizer and disinfectant and tissues and whatever. And we said, this is your desk for the term. Don't ever sit at anybody else's, and you can decorate it. Go crazy. And some of them did. One of your students, Dreamer, oh my gosh. Her desk is always like a work of art.
Yep.
And that's the other thing they want so they want the windows to not always be open, but they want to keep the like designated desks. They really liked that. So why not? I mean, there's no reason not to. As long as we're a community of this size, we can still totally do that. So actually today, several of us who are here in the building, we moved all the desks around, and they're now going to be in 2 separate rooms, but they're all going to be like designated desks again. So
I
that'll be
love
fun.
that. It kind of gives the sense of like, because students don't live at Wayfinding, it
Right.
almost gives you the sort of dorm like sense that you know you can go visit that student at their area that's decorated to show their personality and has their stuff on it. You know, you get that sense of place, that sense of, you know, this is where this person lives when they're here at school. And I think yeah, that turned out to be kind of a cool thing. I really like it.
Some of them also choose like other favorite spots in the building to kind of live, you know,
Yes.
like Jesse. Maybe Jen's watching still, maybe Jen's not. Don't tell Jen. Jen decided that Jen's desk is going to be her desk. So when Jen's not here, which is a lot, Jen works remotely most of the time. Um, that's Jesse's desk. So if Jesse's here but not at her desk upstairs, like her classroom desk, you know exactly where to find Jesse all the time. And some of the students choose the loft for that, or now we have the dungeon, where actually one of our alumni just walked in, Shay. He's finishing painting the mural that's in there. It's beautiful. And
Ooh.
so I think it's like gonna be done really soon, like maybe today. Maybe it looks like it's just touch-ups. But several of the students have chosen that as their favorite hangout space. So they like hang out on the couch in there with a blanket and work at the table. And so that's part of it too for us, is that making sure that our campus building, which is just one building, but that it feels comfortable, that it feels like home, that all of our students can come and go as they please. They can be here whenever they want. And so just making sure that it feels that way to them is very important to us.
It really has that neat like clubhouse feeling in the way that in a playful way, but also as a serious way where you can, you know, seriously work on a project. But then you can also, if you need alone time, you can climb. Well, some people can climb up that ladder, a little hard for people like me, but you can climb up that ladder and go to the loft and just have this little nook that feels so super homey and cozy. And yeah, you're right. Everybody goes to their sort of area where they feel comfortable. But I love that. I love the the fireside room where you can just, you know, sit in big armchairs and easy to be 6 feet apart, right? And have conversations or bring your lunch or whatever that looks like. You know, Michelle, it's interesting. When I took on the job, I thought, well, I'm here to help and I'm here to do this. I had no idea how much learning I was going to have about myself, about my community, about people with different, you know, lived experience than I have, people different ages than I have. I mean, it's been remarkable. And I've had to do a lot of self-reflection based on just the concepts that are presented or what we're going through. And that brings me to like so how would somebody like, wow, I've loved what you had to say today. Like, I'm interested for myself or my kid or someone I know. What's the best way to find out about Wayfinding Academy for somebody?
The best way is our website. We try to keep everything for everybody. A lot of colleges have websites that are just for, like, you know, parents or potential future
Right.
or whatever. We try to, again, with our website, reflect our whole community. So our website is wayfindingacademy.org. We're soon going to be switching to an edu. We don't know how long that takes, but believe it or not, some external person in the Department of Education has to like let that happen.
Okay.
So anyway, we'll see. But for now, we're .org, wayfindingacademy.org. And at the top, you'll find that there's in our main nav at the top of the website, there's a section called community. And so there's a section called student experience. So if you're interested for, you know, somebody in your family who might be a potential match for us as a student, go to the student experience. But for anybody else, if you click on that community drop-down menu, you'll find all kinds of things you can do. Our labs program, which you and I barely even mentioned,
Yes. Oh, right.
they're like these short, really focused courses that are taught by members of the community on topics like gentrification, or we have one coming up on woodworking, one on how the electrical grid works, like fascinating topics. And those are open to everybody. Like, our students take them, but so can anybody else. Most of them are switching back to being in person, but every term we have one that's offered online. And so anybody can take those. We have Learn and Explore trips, including one coming up on May 8th, which is a historical walking tour of the Albina neighborhood with one of the original founders of the Portland Black Panthers Party,
Oh,
Kent Ford. And so, and that's open to the whole community. So there's like things like that, and we periodically, we're about to get back to this, do open houses, which we call wine finding events, where people can come and have a little bit of wine, take a tour, learn about something. So we have a lot of ways that the community can come. You and I talked a lot about our students being out in the community, but we also have ways for the community to come be in with us.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, because I think sometimes people don't know that you offer community things as well. And I can tell you, I can see Corey on here. I took Corey's lab last term and it was so awesome. And in that lab were like a couple of like student parents or people from the community. It was like such a mix of different ages and people all learning something together. It was just a 1-day lab. It was so meaningful. Again, like I did not expect to be learning so much. I thought I was there to teach and to give, and I'm getting, it's such a give and a get, because we are all lifelong learners. We are all developing and on a journey together. And that's what it's really taught me. I just love it. Well, I wanted to give you a chance to, I know recently you did a talk for Multnomah County Libraries on your tiny house, which could be a whole other Instagram live. But what, besides the library, are there other places like in St. John's that you like to go or want to give a shout out to that you can think of?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. I realized as I was doing this that I'm drinking a coffee from the Great North.
Yay!
The third time this week that I've been there.
So good.
They're so great over there, and it's our we do have an espresso machine in the building, and but only like 3 people know how to use it. So if one of those people is not here, then we go we do the like online order pickup from Great North. So today was one of those days. So I don't know, I feel like there's just so many amazing places in St. John's, and our students have, we had a student who worked at Wood Fired Eats for a while and said that was a tremendous experience. And back when Mama San Soul Shack was there, we had a student who worked there and like learned how to be a line cook. And then, so I feel like, I've only been to the Banh Mi Up once since it switched over, but it's so delicious. And so when our new students arrive, we do give them a little list of like, okay, if you want a really good burrito, you go to Tienda Santa Cruz. If you want this, here's, and Signal's, oh my gosh, the salads at Signal Pizza are amazing. And so there's so many, and that's been great too, because our lead matchmaker Jonathan has gone around and made relationships with a lot of the small businesses, and they've given him like little coupons or little welcome notes or little things like this that we deliver to our students when we invite them to come be students, so that they kind of feel like it's like a welcome from the whole neighborhood.
I love that. I know one of my students was telling me that they took a little walk over to Signal Station to get ice cream the other day, and it was so good. And she couldn't remember the name of the place. She's like, the gas station. I'm like, Signal Station.
That's
Signal
right.
Station was that place. That was so cool. And I forgot to mention that my intern for the St. John's Boosters is Carl, who is a wayfinding student.
Yeah.
So that was like yet another connection. So Carl is super integrated into the business community. And actually, I didn't even find Carl. Carl found me by asking someone at Salty Teacup, like, I'd like to intern in like, business district and social media. And they're like, oh, well, we know who you need to talk to. Yeah. And that's how that started. And it's been, I think, just a little bit over a year. And Carl is just an amazing, again, I learn equally as much from Carl as I'm hopefully I'm teaching Carl in his role. And it's just been excellent. I just love it. So very thankful for that internship program for sure.
Oh yeah, and congratulations on the grant for the Pocket Park. I'm so excited about that. And if you want an intern for that, I am certain that one of our students will care a lot about native plants and land acknowledgement. And yes, we should totally make that happen, because internships for our students are like hugely valuable, and they add a lot of value and they get a lot out of it. Our students do. So
yeah, this is a special project, and Carl's on the committee, but I also, the other thing with the interns, I know, even though I would like to think that Carl will be with us forever, I
Oh,
realize that Carl's going to be
live.
graduating at some point.
You
So, yeah,
will
another an
graduate.
intern that wants to learn about this would be fabulous. And also just involving, wayfinding with, work parties, and the land acknowledgement is a big thing. And also a big thing that I've learned while at wayfinding. So, I mean, it's all just so integrated, and doing things in the community with intention, I think is just such an important culture that we're creating for St. John's. And our tagline, this is what you were speaking about in the beginning. So our tagline for the boosters is small town in the big city, because that's what we are. We're in Portland, we're in the city, but we're like a small town within it. And that is the culture that I would love to help preserve. And wayfinding, being right here in our community, is such an asset and such a wonderful gift that we have. And I thank you so much for coming. And I think people hopefully learned a little bit about wayfinding today they might not already know. So every time they walk down the street and pass that little yellow house, they might have a little bit more of an idea what's going on in there. And maybe we'll take a lab, or recommend it to a student they know, a student from everywhere. I mean, the students really come from all over. So I've recommended to people in California and Illinois, it's just such a great thing. And I applaud you doing it. And yes, I wouldn't recommend anybody going out and starting a college based on the amount of work that I've seen that you have to do, but I am thrilled that you have done this.
Oh my. Thank you so much, Liz. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad that this is our home.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you one day in the future with just our bare faces. I would love that experience at wayfinding. It'll be just such a joyous day when that happens. But for now, I'm very grateful to be able to do all that we can do, thanks to your hard work.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. It was good to see you out there in the audience, and we will see you next Friday here at noon. Take care and have a good day and have a great weekend.